Thank you for tuning in to Beard HR. This is Dominic. I'll be walking you through the information today. Let's dive in. Many of us have heard about Disney, Meta, and numerous technology companies who are laying people off. Whether you are in a technology field or something completely different, you're probably wondering what are the signs that a layoff is imminent. Well, let's talk about that from an insider's perspective. Before we dive into the 3 specific things that can indicate a layoff, for those who don't know already, let me tell you a little bit more about the process that leads to a layoff, because this plays a role in understanding why these 3 things are so important. The biggest thing with the layoff is that companies are trying to reduce their cost structure. And what they are looking at doing specifically for a layoff is reducing what they call overhead. This is a fancy way of referring to the pay, the cost of benefits, the cost of the office space, or the resources that go into having the person working for the company. Most companies have this number down pretty well for each position. Sometimes it's within a couple $100s. I do know companies that spend the time and effort to get down to the pennies and dollars to really know specifically how much this is costing them. And what happens is, as recessions and economic factors reduce the amount of revenue coming into the company, they will start looking at, okay, we feel like we need to reduce our overhead. Remember, that was our term. We need to reduce our overhead. And usually what will happen is they will start by looking at their numbers and going, okay, we want to go from this level to this level. Okay, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's $500,000 to $200,000. Maybe it's $2 million to $1.9 million. Whatever those numbers are, they're just trying to reduce that. Once they get that number, they start talking about how they're going to get there. Oftentimes, part of that conversation is a layoff. Now, what goes into a layoff? One of the most important things to realize is, with a couple of exceptions, layoffs almost always start with this number in mind, and then they back into who the employees are who are going to help them get to that number. What are your exceptions? Usually these are going to be executives, highly paid managers, highly paid salespeople. These are individuals who make enough money through the company that if they let that one person go, they can avoid having to let go 2, 3, 5, 10 people in some cases. There are 3 signs of an upcoming layoff. I'm guessing that some of you have already figured out the first one, and that is your company not doing as much business as they have been? Now, some companies are very open about their revenues and profits. Other companies aren't going to share a whole lot about this. Regardless, working in the company, you should be able to see when things are shifting. Maybe not in your department, but if you've gotten to know the people who you work with, probably in other departments, you'll start noticing they're not as busy. The things that they're doing aren't taking as long because instead of having 20 items on their orders, they only have 5, or there are only 20 orders for the day instead of 100 orders. You know, whatever the specifics are of your organization. In and of itself, the company not doing as well, not necessarily a big deal. Companies go through peaks and valleys all the time. It's part of the normal business process. A lot of people, once they've been in a business for a couple years, will even notice that there are specific times of the year when their business tends to do better or do worse. Very common and very normal. The second thing that should be a big warning flag for people is whenever things that normally happen that cost the company money don't happen. And specifically here, I'm talking about things like raises, bonuses, company events that are focused on the employees, such as a company barbecue that normally happens at a certain time of year. What's going on with these? Well, in many cases, what is happening, the reason why these things are not taking place is the company is looking to find ways to keep costs under control. So for instance, raises, if the company normally gives 5% raises each year, if they can avoid that extra 5%, maybe they feel like that may be enough to avoid them having to do a layoff. Usually this is an early step, and usually this is one of those things, doesn't necessarily say layoff is definitely on hand, but taking into account the business being slower and these things not happening, these are two indicators that somebody in the management structure, somebody in the executive structure is looking to keep costs under control as a response to the company not doing as well. This indicates that they don't think that it necessarily is going to change as quickly as it has at some points in the past. This is the reason why this is a key indicator. Sign. Oh, actually, before we dive into the third sign, do me a favor. If you appreciate the information I'm giving you and this has been helpful to you, please click the like and subscribe button and leave us a comment below about the things that you like, don't like, or would like to hear more about, whether it's related to this video or any other topic related to human resources. Third sign is when HR and managers back away from the rest of the employees. The reason why this typically happens is they've had a meeting, they're in discussions about what it is that is going to need to happen as far as reducing headcount, what people call layoffs. And as a consequence, most of these people, their natural tendency is going to be to want to reduce the amount of time that they spend around people who they potentially will have to tell that they don't have a job anymore. Realistically, I don't want to have a great conversation and find out that I really like this person, only to have to turn around tomorrow and tell them, oh, well, you know, yesterday we had this great conversation. Today I'm telling you, you don't have a job. Yeah, HR people are like anybody else. They don't like having those conversations. So what they do is they protect themselves. And in this instance, usually what that means is they're going to back away from being in regular interactions with those employees. Here's an extra one. So the other thing that you will see frequently if you have a direct manager is if they are starting to consider names for layoffs, they're going to stop giving tasks to certain individuals. This oftentimes will point to specific people being on that list because they don't want that person to be in the middle of a key task right before they get laid off. An example of this that I remember vividly from early in my career was a company where they had accounting professionals who worked on different accounts. And when they started going through a layoff process, they quit giving accounts to 2 or 3 individuals who they knew they were not intending to move forward with. This allowed one of those individuals to call me because at that point I was in the recruiting world and I was able to help them find a new position before they officially got told you're no longer needed. Thank you for watching. No, it wasn't the most pleasant topic, but I hope this video has been helpful to you and been informative. If you haven't already, please consider clicking the like and subscribe and leaving us a comment below.